Hi everyone and welcome to Study Room. I am Pratyaksha, your geography teacher, and I'm here to discuss with you the first chapter in geography named Resources. In this chapter, we'll be learning about the definition of resources. We'll be defining those substances that are called resources and with supportive reasons. Next, we'll be learning about the different kinds of resources. Resources can be divided into broadly three types: natural resources, human-made or man-made resources, and humans as resources. Okay? And thirdly, we'll be learning about the conservation of resources. We'll be learning that why resources, be it natural or be it man-made, should be conserved. What are the steps that we can take as to conserve these resources? And finally, why these all are important. So let's get started with the chapter. Firstly, we have to define a resource. We have to set up a definition so that we can pick up that and use that to study about the different kinds of resources. So anything that is used to satisfy our need. Humans have multiple purposes, right? We need a clean environment, we need roads, we need water, we need food, we need air, and all of these should be pure. All of these should have good hygiene so that all of our health is also maintained, and we also acquire good resources. We acquire good food, we acquire good water, so that our functioning is convenient. All right, and for the convenience of these human purposes, we define resources. Okay, so anything that can be used to satisfy our needs. Here are some examples that I mentioned: the water that you drink, the electricity that is supplied to your home, okay, then the rickshaw that you take from home to school, or if not rickshaw, if you travel via some vehicle, then the petrol that is used in that vehicle, okay, the medium via which you go from one place to another, that is also a resource. Your car is a resource, that petrol that you use is a resource. Rickshaw is also a resource. The wheels of rickshaw, that is also a resource, right? Because these individual items, they are making our lives easier. All right, the textbook that you read from, okay, this video that you're watching, these are also resources. Why? Because they are satisfying our needs. What kind of needs? These needs could be for educational purposes, like textbook, like this video. These needs could be transportational, like the rickshaw, the wheels of the rickshaw, the car, or the petrol that is used to run the car. All right, then the food that we eat, the water that we are drinking, the air that we are breathing. For our survival, right, it is satisfying one need or the other that we humans need for our survival, and that we human needs for a proper functioning of our lives. Okay, so all these items could be listed as a resource. All right, so we can broadly specify that all those sources, all those things that have some utility purpose, some usability purpose, means all those sources, all those things, all those items that we humans can use for the better functioning of our lives, okay, for the utility purpose, for the usability purpose, those items then could be listed as resource. And humans also apply some technological skills. Okay, what are these technological skills? We'll be learning about them. These are important skills, these are important tools, you may say, that we have employed, or that we employ, so that we can acquire that usability of a particular item. Okay, so for example, if textbooks are made, so we need paper, right? So paper, we get paper from trees. Then in order to print, we need the printing machine, we need the content that is supposed to be printed, we need ink, or okay, so all of these items. And the you can say the ability by which all of these items are consolidated into one resource item, that is your textbook. These employ technological skills, some important specific technological skills, and these skills are also are further being supplied by humans. All right, so ultimately the end goal is that we are satisfying the needs, okay, and there are small items, there are small components that work together to satisfy a, you can say, a larger or a substantial need, a substantial requirement. Okay, but you have to keep in mind that all of these components, all of these small components, they are working hand in hand. Okay, and what is aiding them to be successful? That is technology, that important skills that help these small components to be, say, consolidated into one important item that you then use as your resource. Now, there must be some humans that say that we have invented these technologies or we have discovered these technologies, right? So, for claiming, for all those humans, they have their claim over those technologies. They have that patent that we call here. The definition is that it means that they have that exclusive right, they have that exclusive claim over that specific idea, over that specific invention, over that specific skills or that technological skill that is ultimately aided in acquiring or in using those resources. All right. Then, how does something become a resource? We have listed that resource have some utility purpose. Okay, and we have also listed that we need specific skills, we need specific technology that can, make happen, or that can, make those specific items be used as a specific resources. For example, I'll give you one example: iron. All right, iron is extracted from iron ore. Okay, so from iron ore you get iron. Iron ore exists naturally. So by itself it is not a very useful resource. But by the employment of accurate technological skills, we can extract iron from iron ore. So we are basically extracting this useful resource iron from this material iron ore. So if you look at it from that perspective, iron ore is also a resource, and by employing the accurate technology, the correct skills or those correct tool sets that I have been mentioning, we can get another useful resource, that is your iron. So then how we specify, how we classify that something is a resource and something is not a resource? Iron ore is something of use to us, but iron is more valuable to us, right? So we are ultimately defining, we are ultimately, you can say scaling those items based on their utility, based on what value they hold in our lives. So iron ore is not of much use, but iron is of myriad use. All right, myriad means many, plenty. Okay, so these value determine worth. What kind of worth? We can say economic worth, okay, commercial worth. All right, means ultimately these resources are helping us to acquire some sort of money, some sort of, you can say, economic gain. Okay, so for example, if specific people, they're extracting iron from iron ore, and these people, they're then transporting this iron to different industries where specific products of iron they are made. Okay, so these resources, these iron resources, iron materials, they have this economic purpose, they have this economic or commercial value. All right, that is determining all those people to work in order to extract iron from the ore in the first place, and then to transport them, to supply them to the respective industries. So metals, they have an economic value, but a beautiful landscape may not. All right, so the difference that I'm trying to establish here is that a beautiful landscape could be an area which is used for for the grazing purposes of cattle, or that beautiful landscape could also be used for farming. All right, there are very scenic, picturesque landscapes that are also used for farming, for grazing, or a park could also be built in that specific area. Okay, so if you look at it from that perspective, from a commercial or from an economic perspective, that beautiful landscape may not have so much value to it, because there are various landscapes. If you happen to travel towards a hill station, or to any other coastal areas, you may come across very beautiful landscapes, and not all of those landscapes are being commercialized to be made into a park, to be made into a farm, or to be used as grazing areas for cattle. Some are just like that, some exist just like that for our scenic value, for our scenic purposes. All right, so these beautiful landscapes, they do not have that much economic value. But if you look at metals, okay, and if you compare metals that have very obvious economic values, because the metals could fetch you huge amounts of money, could fetch you huge amounts of products that would ultimately fetch you money. Okay, but these beautiful landscapes, not all of them are being commercialized for that use. So if you look at it from this angle of thought, from this perspective, you may come to a conclusion that some resources, they have a value, a specific economic value, a specific value that is associated with money, and some resources, they do not have such value. Okay, that doesn't mean that those things are not resources. They are resources. They are there for our utility, for our use. Okay, a scenic landscape can, produce certain chemicals in your brain that stimulates you to feel calm. Okay, that stimulates a very happy, a goody goody feeling. All right, that means that both of them are satisfying human needs. A scenic landscape is also satisfying a human needs, and a metal is also satisfying human needs. But since these metals have a very obvious, implication, or have a very obvious value, economic value, they are largely termed as resources. And when we talk about these beautiful landscapes, we do not immediately give them the tagline of resource. All right. Time and technology are two important factors that determine whether a specific product is to be named resources in the sense of commercial value, okay, resources in the sense of economic value. So that technology is, like I have explained you earlier, is the application of latest knowledge or some skills that is aiding you to acquire that resource. Okay, time and technology, they matter because, for example, earlier in village areas, there used to be no bathrooms, right? People used to defecate near the riverside. Okay, but with the passing time and with the, you can say, accurate invention and discoveries of technology, we started building bathrooms for our use, for our bathing purposes, for defecation as well. Okay, so with time and with passing time and with increasing technological assets, those important skills, those important tools, all of these are now being converted into important resources, and these resources are, why are they are for our utility purpose, they are for our for satisfying our needs. And there are some resources that satisfy a very economic commercial need of humans, and in this chapter we'll be basically focusing on those resources that have that economic or commercial purpose or value to it. Okay, now, which of these items have no commercial value? Are those items still resources? So there is a list of items over here, and we have to differentiate between items who have a commercial value and items which do not. Okay, cotton cloth, iron ore, intelligence, medicinal plants, medical knowledge, old folk songs, good weather, affection from friends and family. So if you will go through this list carefully, you will notice that there are some items that are abstract in quality, means they do not have a very concrete shape on its own. For example, intelligence. For example, medical knowledge. Okay, also good weather, also affection. Okay, means you cannot concretely define it, concretely pinpoint it. It's something that you feel or something that you acquire, that you have. It is abstract in nature. Cotton cloth, it is very obvious that it is going to fetch you money. It is used in commercial, economic market scales. All right, so this has a commercial value. Iron ore, we have seen it already. Iron ore is used to extract iron and different other metals that may come out from it. So iron ore also has a commercial value. Now, if you look at it from two perspectives, intelligence may seem to have a commercial value, and if you look at it from another angle of thought, another school of thought, then you may also argue that intelligence has no commercial value. Okay, so if a person is intelligent, that person can build new things, that person can write various books, that person can land himself or herself in a certain job. Okay, so that is ultimately, bringing, intelligence is ultimately bringing that particular individual some commercial value, some economic gain. So if you look at it from this perspective, intelligence does hold a commercial value. But if you look at it from another perspective, from another angle of thought, you may argue that intelligence, it varies from person to person. Okay, and it is an abstract quality that people have. You cannot pinpoint you cannot pinpoint, and you cannot target intelligence to be a commercial thing, to a commercial commodity that can fetch you money. All right, so these are two varying schools of thought. You can view this item as you may wish. For me, if I have to look at the perspective of gaining commercial value, intelligence may fetch me that. All right, medicinal plants also have commercial value, okay, because they are used to extract important herbs, important medicines that are ultimately being processed in industries. Medical knowledge, it is you can argue this in the same line that I have helped you to think about intelligence, because from one point of view, medical knowledge can land you a medical job, okay, that will ultimately medical job is going to have two purposes, right? It will definitely, most definitely, get you money, okay, and the second thing is that you are helping people, or if you're a botanist, so say plants, or if you are a veterinarianist, say animals, okay. So medical knowledge is helping you commercially, as well as medical knowledge is helping you to save all of living creatures, not just humanity but other living creatures like plants, like animals, like insects, depending on what specific creature you have that specific medical knowledge, okay. Old folk songs. Now, old folk songs, if you look at it from a direct purpose of commercial value, it is not, because songs are what? Songs are for our entertainment. Songs are for, releasing that stress, releasing that frustration that is built up in us. Okay, songs are for entertainment. Okay, so a very obvious thought, concludes us or directs us that no, old folk songs would not have a commercial value, because its main purpose is not gaining money, its main purpose is for entertainment. Yes, but there are few artists who purposefully produce or purposefully make their songs come into production on a very large scale, so that may fetch them money. From that angle, old folk songs could have a commercial value, but primarily, if you think about it, they do not have a commercial value to it. Good weather, again, good weather does not have a commercial value, because good weather it could be depending on the area where you're living. If you are living in an area that is afflicted with rain, a sunny weather could be a good weather. If you are living in an area where you are stricken with drought, then a rainy weather could be counted as a good weather. All right, so it depends. Okay, it depends, and it is not going to it is not directly again looked at from the angle of gaining commercial value. Okay, then affection from families and friends is also not a commercial value. Yes, it does again make you feel good about yourself, it does make you feel loved, it does make you feel important. Okay, so just because these are not commercial resources, or just because these items do not hold a commercial value, it does not mean that they are not resources. They are still resources, means they are still satisfying our needs. Old folk songs are helping us in entertainment, releasing that stress. Good weather again can make you feel good about where you are living. Okay, a rain could relieve you from that intense heat, or a rain could also relieve you from or a sunny weather could relieve you from that rain or cold environment where you're living. Okay, affection from friends and family, definitely a resource, definitely satisfying your needs, is satisfying your psychological needs. Okay, so these items, they may not be directly applicable to holding some commercial value, but these items are definitely resources because they are satisfying our needs, and they have some usability to it, they have some utility towards it, right? That utility is definitely different from a commercial utility, but nevertheless it is a utility all in all. Now that we have learned about resources, we'll be learning about the three kinds of resources, mainly natural resources, man-made resources, and human resources. The first kind that we will be learning is natural resources. Like the name suggests, natural resources are those products, items, commodities that we are deriving or we are getting directly from nature. So, a negligible to little man-made interference or a negligible to little human interference is required, to process or to channel these natural resources into direct human consumption, for direct human consumption. Okay, for example, the air that we breathe, the water, the fresh water that we are drinking. Okay, earlier we used to drink water directly from rivers, but now, of course, because of various contamination, because of various pollution, we are processing. So there is a human interference that is helping that dirty water to get clean, to get purified, and then we are consuming that water. But that doesn't deny the fact that water is a natural resources. We are getting water from glaciers, from all those rivers, lakes that is coming to us from mountains. Okay, soil is a natural resource. Minerals that are present in the soils and that ultimately get built up in the specific fruits, vegetables, and when we consume that, we are getting those minerals as well. So all of these items, they are natural resources. There is little to no human interference in it. Okay, and if there is a human interference, that is basically not that is basically to alter not the constituent of that resource, but basically to make that resource available to us, convenience, so that we can use these resources in a very convenient manner. So we are applying the right tools, we are applying the right technology, that right skills or tool sets that I've been talking about, in order to process or in order to make all of these natural resources available to our use. Okay. Okay, so natural resources can again be divided into two types: renewable natural resources and non-renewable natural resources. Now, the term renewable, if you have a look at it, can be divided into, you can say, into two parts: re and then newable. Okay, so what does this re signify? Re is basically, you can say that you can understand it as re for repeat, or you're reusing it again. Repeat, or what can repeat again signify? Reuse. Okay, so those resources that can be made new again, that can be reused, that can be repeated, okay, without a very obvious fear of the exhaustion of those resources, the completion. Exhaustion means completion. Okay, those resources are known as renewable resources. And those resources that cannot be repeated, that cannot be renewed, that cannot be made available to us again and again on its own. Okay, those resources are non-renewable resources. Now, here in this picture, you have two examples. One is, you can see the sun, and the other is coal. Okay, now sunlight. You must have heard of solar energy. Okay, so the energy that we are getting from the sun is being used to convert it into electricity, and that energy, that electricity, we are ultimately using it for our purpose. All right, so the conversion of solar energy, or energy from the sun, to our own and energy electrical purposes, this is a renewable resource. Okay, this is a renewable resource because we do not need to do anything to acquire that sunlight. Okay, that the sun is shining upon us, we are revolving around the sun. Okay, so we do not need to produce that sunlight, we do not have to produce that solar energy. That is available to us by nature, and that is available to us by nature in a non-exhaustive manner. Means it will not get completed or exhausted on its own. Therefore, it is a renewable resource. Whereas on the other hand, coal takes millions of years to form. I'll in a further slide, I'll be explaining you that. So coal takes millions of years to form, and it is a non-renewable resource. Means that once it has been exhausted completely, once it has been used completely, you cannot just make it on your own. Okay, since it is a natural resource, so it is available in nature, but it takes millions of years to form. So you have to wait for so long, right? So that is why you have to be very careful when you're using these resources, be it natural renewable resources, or be it natural non-renewable resources. Okay, here you are seeing another renewable resource, that is your wind energy. So we know that we can get energy, our electricity from coal, okay, but since coal is a non-renewable resource, we are shifting to other modes of renewable resources of energy, such as solar energy that I had explained to you in the previous slide. Here, this is the example of wind energy, where these turbines are they revolve, they rotate when a high intensity wind blows across, and then that wind energy is ultimately used to convert it into another forms of energy such as electrical energy. Okay, so those renewable resources of energy are that can be renewed, that can be repeated again, that can be reused again. So it is replenished quickly. By replenished, I mean that it is getting restored quickly, or it is getting renewed quickly. Okay, example, solar energy and wind energy that I explained you. Here you can see this is a solar panel, and when sunlight falls on the solar panel, there are specific these panels are made up of specific materials, and they then convert the solar energy into electrical energy. Okay, but you have to be very careful about using these renewable resources, because there are certain resources, renewable resources, such as water, such as soil, such as forest. Now you may think that water is available on earth in such a huge quantity, right? Soil, it is available almost everywhere, and forest also. But now that you're learning about everything around you, you're learning about the environment around you, you must be hearing about scarcity of water. You must be hearing about certain areas, certain poor areas, or certain even urban areas that are not getting supply of water. Why? Because the fresh water that we are using is getting depleted. It is a renewable resource, yes, because there are rivers, lakes, ponds, oceans, but the saline water, the sea water, that cannot be used for human consumption because it is salty in nature. All right, but the fresh water that we're getting from lake, rivers, ponds, they can be used. But since they are getting contaminated, they're getting polluted, and since we humans are since we humans are always polluting water, we are always contaminating water, so the amount of fresh water, the amount of drinking water is available very less for us now. Okay, so we have to very vigilant, we have to be very aware when we are using these resources. Again, for example, soil. So we know that soil has specific nutrients, specific minerals, but because of you can say soil erosion, because of deforestation, so a lot of important minerals that are available on the topmost layer of the soil, that is getting depleted, or you can say that is getting eroded. Okay, the topmost layer of the soil, you know that it has important minerals, it has important nutrients, okay, for the nourishment of the plants, for the growth of the plants. But because of deforestation, that again brings me that forest, we consider forest to be a very a renewable resource, but because of continuous deforestation, we are not only depleting the nutrient layer of the soil, we are also making that the availability of trees, for trees, different kinds of important shrubs and herbs, less and less to us. So we have to be very careful, we have to be very aware when we are using these renewable resources. Okay, so like we have here in this last paragraph, that is what I have been explaining to you, that shortage and drying up of natural water resources because of increasing heat, because of increasing global warming. So glaciers, yes, they are melting. That from that line of thought, you may argue that we should have more water, but no, because of increasing heat, water bodies, they're also getting dried up. Okay, water is getting evaporated. Okay, and because of that, there is a very major problem in the world of drinking water, fresh drinking water. Okay, then we have non-renewable resources, where I have talked to you about coal, about there is another non-renewable resources, very important, that is petroleum, that is natural gas. So all of these, coal, petroleum, natural gas, yes, they are available in nature. All of these are natural resources, but all of these take millions and millions of years to form. And how are they formed? They are formed by dead remains of plants. Okay, dead remains of plants, not just plants, sometimes also animals. Okay, and sometimes not just dead remains but also plants matter, or animals matter, means the fecal matter, okay, the defecated residues, all right. So all of these, what happens is that they get accumulated in the layers of soil, and after millions and millions of years, sedimentation, or you can say layering happens, okay. And when we have a very thick layer of all these dead remains, now these are made up of certain building materials, right? Carbon, nitrogen, okay. So they are getting layered, and they are getting solidified, and ultimately after millions of years we have we can say the accumulation of this product known as coal, okay. And in certain areas, in rivers and oceans, you have natural gases, or you have petroleum, those liquid petrol, diesel, all right, they are derived from crude oil, okay. So like iron ore, we get iron from iron ore. So from crude oil we get petrol, we get diesel, and other important petrochemical products, okay. So all of these, they are there either layered up inside the soil or layered up inside, you can say, in the water, in the river bodies, all right, and water bodies. So distribution of natural resources, it depends on different factors. Terrain means the kind of land, okay, climate and altitude. So the kind of plants that you get in a certain area, it varies from the kind of plants you can say that you get in deserts. Cactus is not available in a very tropical area, all right. Or example, there are also trees and forests that you get in colder areas, so that you're not getting in the tropical region, okay. In the dry areas, you're not getting those plants that you get in the tropical area. So the kind of natural resources that are available to us, it depends on the terrain, it depends on the climate as well, whether it is dry, arid, whether it is cold, whether it is normal, temperate, or tropical, hot, okay. Altitude as well, okay. So for example, glaciers that are available to us at the topmost portion of the mountains, in the hilly areas, right, you won't get glacier where you're getting rivers, and you won't get rivers where you're getting glaciers, okay. So altitude, it depends on altitude, it depends on climate, and it depends on the type of land, okay, the terrain, whether it is a hilly area, whether it is a dry area, or whether it is a very wet area, in fact, also. So stock of resources, it is a side note here, and stock of resources is nothing but the amount of resources that is available for us to use. So we have to be very, very careful, we have to be very, very vigilant when we are taking stock of these resources. Even if we are using renewable resources and using non-renewable resources, we have to be anyway extra careful, because these resources have a limited stock, and they cannot be reused repeatedly again and again, okay. Here you are seeing, like I have told you about coal, that coal takes millions and millions of years to form, and after a period of those millions of years, when you get that material, you use it for your own purpose, it is used in the industrial areas, in the electrical areas, okay. So but we have to be very, very careful, okay. And also soil, okay. So soil is also very important for us to use, but soil, even though it is a renewable resources, we have to be careful that the materials, the nutrients that are there in the soil, that can be eroded, that can be depleted, or like you can see here, it can be taken from one place to another, okay. So we have to be very careful, because the composition of these soil, or you can say the availability of this coal, is very limited in nature. And finally, we have human-made resources, okay. So all of those resources that are made by human, okay, and they are made by human by, of course, using certain materials that we get from natural resources, okay. But there is a major human intervention, there is a major alteration of the composition of those products that we are getting from nature, okay. For example, a textbook is a man-made or a human-made resources, okay, because for producing a textbook you need paper, and definitely you get paper from forests, from trees, so you can argue that you're getting it from nature. But the important alteration that is happening there, wood is used to produce paper, that wood pulp is used to produce paper, then you are using ink and you are using printing machines to print the important contents, then you are binding it by different glues, you're basically the cover of those textbooks, you are using different materials for that colorful fluorescent you can say texture, okay, that shiny texture. So all of these are man-made resources because there is a major alteration of that product that you're getting from nature, okay, major intervention of humans, okay. For example, the buildings that we have, the bridges, here in the second paragraph you'll find examples, machinery, vehicles, okay, all of these are man-made resources. Petrol and diesel, yes, we are getting it from nature, yes, they are natural resources, okay, but the broad tagline of petroleum could be a very apt example of natural resource. If you are individualizing that material that you're getting from petroleum, for example gasoline, for example petrol, for example diesel, so these are not available like that in nature. There is a major human intervention, okay. So you can say argue that petrol is a man-made resource, but you have to be very careful because petrol, you're deriving it from petroleum. So when you're talking about petroleum, the crude substance, the crude oil that we are getting, that is a natural resource, and and on top of that is a non-renewable natural resource, okay. And finally, we have human resources. So I have established this to you that resources are all those materials that have some utility purpose to it, right? Some usability purpose to it, and moreover, it satisfies your need, or it satisfies needs. All right. So what is important to mention here is that human beings also, they are working, okay, they are working to develop important ideas, they are working to develop important technological skills or tool sets that are giving us those materials or those you can say inventions that are making our lives easier, okay. So the intelligence that I have argued is an abstract quality, and you can argue whether it has a commercial purpose or not, okay. So if you're talking about the important use of those abstract qualities, the utility of those abstract qualities, whether it is satisfying needs or not, that means whether it is a resource or not, it is definitely a resource because it is ultimately making our lives easier, right? There is a term known as human resource development where the qualities of the skill sets of humans, they are being improved, or they are being motivated to to develop more ideas, to develop more to think of more inventions, so that our lives are getting easier and human technological skill set is also increasing. So in that line of thought, knowledge, skill, health, education, these are important resources, and these come under the domain of human resources. All right. Here you can see that in this picture you can see that there is an industrial worker and he's working in this industry. He's rotating a specific wheel that has a specific function. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that the kind of men that, or not just men, women, the kind of people, the number of people basically that you need in an industrial area, or say in another company, okay, in different companies, okay, that also comes under human resources, because ultimately you're talking about people, you're ultimately talking about the number of people that you need, and then the individual skill set, the abilities that those people have. So some people in an industry, you can say some people may have very important physical skill sets, like here this man in this picture, okay, that may be useful for operating certain machineries, whereas some people may have more mental skill sets that that is very important for that whole industry to function on a very upper scale. Okay, so at the ground level you have these people that are working, that have their physical tool sets, and on the upper scale you have those people who are organizing things, that this is how these should work, mental abilities, mental tools. Okay, so these also come under the domain of human resources, where you have to assess, where you have to think about the quantity of people, the number of people, and the specific skill sets of those people. Okay, So these are different views regarding treatment of humans as resource, but human resource is, you can say, you can argue that it is a valuable term of resource, because ultimately the important definition that we had learned about resources, namely the utility section, and namely this gratification of our needs, the satisfaction of our needs, that is getting fulfilled. So in this section, the first section, we learned about the definition of resource, and we also had a look at the three kinds of resources: natural resources, man-made or human-made resources, and finally human beings as resource. In the second part of the chapter, we'll be discussing the conservation of these resources. We'll be discussing why it is important to conserve, to use these resources in a very, very careful and vigilant manner. So I'll be seeing you in the next part of this chapter.